I'm Brad Mayeur, and I have 914 Limited in East Peoria, Illinois, and I've been working with Porsche for about 43 years. And I'm going to show you how to put a dash top on a 914 here. We have a replacement dash. Dash comes from 914 rubber. It's a beautiful reproduction. They've even got the graining matched perfectly on that. Porsche made a second run of these dashes, but the graining wasn't even close to what their original dashes were, but this came out beautiful. So show you how to put the dash on. We just have a dash setting here. Some challenges. One of the things we have to do first of all is there's two A-pillar trims, interior A-pillar trims that have to come off. They give you enough room to lift the dash up. They're just held on with three Phillips screws, got little caps on them, and pull those down. You'll have to take the top off to get a little extra clearance at the top corners, but that should give you enough room to do everything you need to do on top here. Okay. This is kind of a combination dash. It has the 75-76 housing here. This is plastic. This we don't worry about too much on the steel one for the 1974 and earlier. I put some tape across here because as you pull these gauges out, you can scrape the gauges and you can scrape the top of your housing here. So a little tape helps out with that. I have a kind of a different way of pulling the gauges, and there's also going to be different ways of doing this job, but just show you the way I do it. Pull the gauge out, pull the rubber off, and at that point the gauge will slip through the hole. Sometimes you can pull these out with your fingers, but if they've been in there for a while, you'll have to have a little nylon pick tool to pull them out. Pull this off, let this thing drop through the hole, and same with this. Okay, at this point there are six screws holding this panel in. Then take those out. You have four countersunk screws up here, and although they're missing, there's two pan head screws that come from underneath. And these pan head screws are located right here. On the 75-76, you can just loosen them up. On the earlier cars, you have to take them completely out, right in here. You can take this out, and you can see the slots where the 75-76 can pull them out. Well, the screws are actually there. Well, one of them is. And that's a pan head screw, self-tapping. Okay, you want a nice, safe place to drop all your hardware. Good place for that. Now you can do a couple of different ways. It's not too bad. This doesn't have the wires attached. It makes it a little too easy, but we'll go for it. You can leave the wires attached, and you can get back in here and loosen up the nuts that hold that over. The dash structure is in here. So you can pull these out, or you can leave them hung by the wires. You'll have to disconnect the speedometer cable and the little reset for the odometer. You just take a little screwdriver or knife blade and just pop that out. It's real easy. It's got a square drive just like the speedometer does. Pop that out and you can let it hang also. That way you don't have to disconnect all the wires. It's a little harder getting in that way. You can take the gauges completely out, but they're pretty self-explanatory, but it's probably best to label everything that you've got. Drop all your gauges out, and we don't have the complete dash structure here. Right here, there's a part of the body is right here, and there are two fasteners right here. And what we normally have to do is, get in there. It's kind of a tight in here. Get this loosened up. drop those down. They're easy to drop in. Be kind of careful with that, and show you how that's these two fasteners here, and they're in the back of the hood for the gauges. You also have one back underneath here, and that one, when you got these gauges out, you can reach in with your tool, get that one loosened up. That comes out. You have one at this end in the same place. This one's the also, you can get it through here, a little tight, and these happen to have been off recently enough that I can take them off with my fingers, but a really short 13 millimeter, it'd be the best way to get these off. I have one box that I've cut off probably about 2.5 inches overall. You don't need any torque on these. In fact, you should be very careful not to put any torque on them, because they are plastic fasteners. They will certainly fail if you tighten them down too much. There's two from the sides. The radio comes out. Should have been something I did first.
That's actually just wired in there.
Just wired in?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I get a wire shut out.
All right. Take the lower dash off. That's all Phillips screws. We have two self-tapping Phillips screws on each end, one on each end. There's a larger size interior plug on those, also the same size that you use on the door pocket. Hard to find. Take your Phillips screws out from the end. It's kind of twisted. We got her. This is a machine screw, but it's should be a self-tapping sheet metal. There's also 5 underneath here. They're number 1 Phillips, and they have an enlarged washer, like a fender washer, with them. This is not quite the right hardware, but they're all across the bottom. Real easy to take this off. Missing that one. Okay, now we should be able to pull this forward.
I want to know who is rolling around with this cart at 3 o'clock in the morning loading things back and forth.
Is it 3?
I hear clunk, 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 clunk.
Pull this lower dash, pull it straight rearward in the car. Finding a little bit of room here. You can see the depressions where the screws are. There's 5 screws. They're all Phillips originally. Comes off easy and goes back on real easy. That'll allow me access to this one back here. There's one more of these, let's see, they're a combination of steel and plastic 8mm nuts. And there's one back up in here. Okay, with this out,
I know it's
okay. Okay, with this out, we have one more nut, and this happens to be one of the 2 that's facing forward. I believe these are the steel nuts. Those, let's see. Now, like I say, there's a combination of steel and nylon. It's not really important. I'm sure there was a reason the Germans did the nylon nuts on one surface and steel on the other. We have these nuts here. One's right up above the radio. still there. All right. And we have two that are exposed when you get the lower dash off. The early cars work a little different. There's no vents to work in.
Brad, give me 1 second.
Okay. We have two that are rearward or forward facing, I should say, on each end that are accessible through the vents. There should be washers on each one of these. That one, we have this one here, and that's it. I have a nylon tool that I take, and we're not going to go for perfection here, but 40 years ago somebody probably spilled Coca-Cola down here and they get stuck. So I take my nylon tool and run it along here to break that piece so you don't lift this vinyl here. This vinyl here is a lot harder to change because you have to take this dash structure completely out in order to change it correctly.
Would you recommend that they replace that while it's out?
Well, if it's nice, leave it in. You know, they seem to be okay, but if it's it is a bigger job because you do have to take this entire dash structure out in order to get this glued around the corner.
Okay.
So you break this, and you can lift it without lifting this glue joint, this right here. So I'm going to wiggle this up a little bit, forward, hold on in two different planes, so you have to get just the right movement in order to get this roll popped out. Got to get them pulled, each one of them pulled out. Okay, that's it. Lift her off. There's your bare dash structure. Basically, as they say in all the instructions, just repeat the way you took it off. Drop this down in. You're dealing with these are elongated holes, so you can work a little bit with this, but you have to get in both vertical and horizontal at the same time. So,
Is there anything else you'd recommend we do with the dash out?
no, nothing I can think of. If you want to check and make sure this is glued down, this is a little loose here. It should have been glued down all the way across, but it's not causing any rippling in here. And like I said, this would be the time, one of the things you need to do first of all, you're going to replace this part. And places, warmer climates, this can get pretty messed up. This actually is pretty good dash material up here. This has a foam padding on the back side, and 914 rubber has that available for you. So, all right. Let's go through the same thing. All these kind of slid in. Same time, a little easier to pop back on than it is off. Remember, a lot of these things, they've been there 40 years. They're real happy where they're at, so they may not be too easy to take off. A lot of parts of them, unfortunately. Okay. Basically, just put everything back together. Put your screws, and again, I don't remember which. One direction has the nylon nuts, one direction has the steel nuts and washers. Be kind of careful with the washers. You may want to put a little dum-dum on the nuts. We're in a parking lot. Yeah. If you so remember where the nuts were, and the nylon nuts and the steel nuts. I don't think it's really critical, but again, make sure you don't over tighten them. It's just enough to snug the top of the dash down and put everything back together. Pretty straightforward. This should take you maybe an hour to replace, and you've got a really beautiful looking dash at that point.
like to thank the dash donor. Go ahead and tell us who you are and why you don't have a dash in your car.
I'm Cliff Fall. I dismantled several 914s while I was building a race car, and this dash came out of one of the cars. And I just mounted it, thought it'd look good sitting on somebody's table or wall someplace.
Thank you for your help. Thank you very much.